You're still searching for that breakthrough that always feels just out of reach. What is your true life path, and how do you finally find it? Welcome to Say It Anyway, the podcast where we help you unlock the breakthrough you've been waiting for so your true life path can finally come to life. Each week, we share powerful practical tools you can use right now to start transforming your life. You'll hear raw, honest conversations with people from all walks of life, people who've found their way forward and are here to share mindsets, strategies, and wisdom that help them get there. I'm James Ferrigno. I've helped people reconnect with their power for years. I'll guide you beyond surface level solutions into a deeper way of seeing the world, one rooted in connection, courage, and open-hearted dedication. This is your space to think differently, live boldly, and finally do the thing you were meant to do. Let's get started. Welcome to Say It Anyway. This is James Ferrigno, and our guest today is Mike Strong of Strong Life Coaching. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, James. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've spoken.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, I think. Really, maybe we touched base here and there, but a lot's happened since Fearless.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about that. For people who may not know you yet, how do you usually describe your work? Like, what is it that you do today?
So I help men really learn what it actually is to just be yourself. Because I believe, and I'm not the first person to say this, but I believe that that is both the best and worst dating advice you can get. It's the best because it really is, uh, it really is great dating advice, and being your best self does make you magnetic to women, to the right people, um, and beyond women, to people in general for your really your whole life. The problem is those of us that need to hear that advice the most, we don't know what that actually is. We're like, oh, I am just being myself, but we're actually operating from some kind of subconscious defense mechanisms, subconsciously, and often it's nice guy syndrome. There are other versions of it too, but um, I myself was like, I thought I would just need to be nicer to women, and that would work, and obviously that didn't work.
Yeah. No, that doesn't work. So, why don't we start? Why don't you tell me a little bit about just your origins, your childhood? So, where was it that you grew up?
Marin County in the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah, you've told me you were from Sleepy Hollow, huh?
Yep, yep.
So it's up by San
Beautiful
Anselmo.
area. I was very, very fortunate to grow up there.
Yeah, really nice area. So, why don't we talk about? So you had it's sometime in your childhood, like a stroke. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, 2 strokes actually.
Two.
Between the ages of, I always forget the exact ages, but between 1.5 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember the first one. I was so young, and the second one, I believe, is my first memory, my first clear memory, at least. I was My mom, had driven me home from, like, the store, and she went to the back seat to take me out of the, I think it was still a child seat, um, and she was carrying me into the house. I'll never forget just feeling weird. I just felt weird, and I tried to tell her to, change how she was holding me, and, of course,
Mm,
because I was having a stroke, it came out as gibberish as she was
yeah.
walking up the steps to our house, and I went dead weight, and blacked out and woke up in an ambulance.
Mm. Yeah. So this is a, you know, life-changing event, obviously. So how did this affect your relationship with your body and your growth as a kid?
Yeah, well, I mean, I should also say that the doctors told my parents that I'd be a vegetable. So obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't happen, and
Yeah.
my little body and my little mind was pretty resilient. But Yeah, well, a lot of physical therapy and also speech therapy. If you listen close enough, you'll even hear little things in my speech that are a little off still,
Mm-hmm.
because I did have to relearn to talk and walk twice. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I was always pretty resilient and actually confident growing up. My mom tells a couple stories where, like, we were in Italy, and I made friends with this old man on this bench while
Mm-hmm.
eating ice cream, or I was eating ice cream and he was smoking a cigarette. And I told him he shouldn't smoke cigarettes. I was very outgoing. I was very
Yeah.
outgoing, and
Yeah.
my mom even tells another story where I was like 5 and I was in an airport terminal waiting for a flight, and there was a 20 something right next to me girl, and apparently I was just like innately just stuck my hand down and started rubbing her leg. So I was very confident and like very charming, outgoing as a little boy. But then,
Ah.
yeah, yeah. But then I kind of got into middle school um and got more insecure about my disability then, as kids are, becoming prepubescent, right?
Yeah.
Or getting into puberty. And also, a big part of it too was that my dad was manic bipolar. And
Mm.
that kind of really showed up, and he really like went through some rough times starting around 3rd grade. So he couldn't really be there for me a lot of the time, emotionally. And so I just got very hypersensitive about everything, and then that being on top of, like, being insecure about how I walk with a limp, how my arm looks, uh, and, um, yeah, I got into a very hypersensitive kinda place where I didn't understand that masculine bonding, part of that is, like, giving each other shit, right? And I would just take it, um, and not really and get either not say anything and just, like, let it pile on my self-esteem, or just, like, act out of like, act out and cry about it. I cried a lot in school, actually, when I was younger,
Mm.
and I couldn't get the masculine bonding thing. It was just sensitive to everything.
Oh. So you were a sensitive kid, and y- you started to focus on some of your challenges, and I know I've had that happen too, where you kind of go down this rabbit hole of just focusing on it. It just escalates, and you focus on only that.
Yeah, yeah, and I became that's a good point. I'm glad you kind of put it that way. I did become a bit of a victim to my disability, just in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, like, victim mentality and, like, the way I was carrying myself. Just playing very small with
Mm-hmm.
people, like a very like playing almost playing into that disabled role of, like,
Yeah.
sensitive disabled kid. you know I started playing that role, and I also, like, I had a lot of accommodations in school with my disability, but then I started
Yeah.
exploiting them a little. I almost said a
Yeah.
little bit, that's not true. I started exploiting them a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of added to, like, my sense subconsciously and sometimes consciously of, like, learned helplessness, basically victim mentality, that I couldn't handle things, and,
Mm-hmm.
basically that, I had good friends and I was always well liked in school for the most part, except for some moments with some guys I let bully me, that I kind of drew that out of them again by my hypersensitivity.
Yeah.
Um, and I was always well liked, but uh, it was kind of like I would just get sensitive very easily, and definitely didn't have any sort of dating life. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it can be difficult in this culture when you're sensitive. I know I went through this myself. It was like there's no guide to tell you. I mean, I certainly didn't have it. My parents didn't know anything about it. There were no teachers or anyone really to tell me, you know, about the guys busting each other's balls or whatever. I didn't know about that. No one told me that was a thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and there's lots of things like that. There's really just really a lack of initiation for all young people, and I think it really hits guys hard. Um,
Yeah, I would say
yeah,
especially, yeah, young men,
yeah,
we need some kind of healthy masculine, initiation process, I think, throughout boyhood into adulthood.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it can be difficult for kids, that don't have that guidance, and especially if you're sensitive, then it kind of amplifies the whole situation, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah. I got into
you
a
know,
lot of, like, I always loved, for example, um, I mean, friendships were an issue in terms of respect and, like, how I was connecting with them, like I said, but then, like, women, there was just no attraction. I was always, like I said, what being since I was a five-year-old, right? I always
hmm
loved women, but,
hmm
they didn't see they saw me as a nice, cute guy, but once once I would start opening my mouth, or once they would see how I was with people, any attraction, when I would rarely get it, would disappear pretty quickly because it's just like not attractive energy.
yeah, yeah, and I guess that can be even more challenging if you have a disability that people can see.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
um we'll get to now it can definitely be one of my strengths in terms of my attractiveness,
Yeah.
but it wasn't always like that, right? It can be something like that, whether it's like I'm short too. I'm 5'7" I'm 5'7" when I stand up straight on my right leg, on my
Oh,
longer
okay.
leg. So I mean, like, I say I'm 5'7", but I'm short too, and I
Mhm.
think any kind of cultural, stereotypical disadvantage to your attractiveness as a man, um, it can be, it can be an advantage when you learn to own it, and we'll definitely get to that, I'm sure. But
Mhm.
it can play into this guy isn't so attractive when you're not dealing with your challenges or your disadvantages well.
Mhm.
Then it can look bad, right? It can just not exactly trigger attraction, right?
Yeah.
You might care for someone, like from like average girls in school, or women, um, past high school, they can think you're a nice guy and really care about you and be like, "Whoa, this guy is even inspirational." That he's, in my case, that I'm out there in society. I was still very outgoing, and I'm not like hiding in my room playing video games just all day, not
Mhm.
going out and socializing. I didn't let that hold me back in terms of my disability, but when you have this small energy that plays into that disability, yeah, it's
Mhm.
not gonna help your attractiveness.
No. I mean, I guess, these things all operate really the same way, like with approach anxiety, when you have fear. If you don't own it, you're completely unattractive. If you own it, in a way, you kind of have an advantage over people that don't have the fear.
Yep,
So I'm sure
yep,
it works the
because,
same way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
when you walk up to a woman with, like, confident, bold energy and maybe even poking fun, in a not self-deprecating way, but a way that I'm comfortable with this. I'm
Mhm.
actually comfortable with this, and I don't see it as a negative. Um, when you bring that energy, even just that vibe of that feeling inside, um, and step up to a woman, it can definitely be like, whoa, this guy has all the reasons. Like, let's say you're overweight, or you're short, or or you're balding, or whatever, and a lot of men would normally be insecure about it and let that hold
Mhm.
them back from approaching their dream girl, or a woman they think is out of their league. Um,
Mhm.
and you walk up with confidence, or even like even nervousness, but you're owning it and you're
Yeah.
having fun with it, and you're like, you make me nervous, and you're enjoying it in the moment though.
Mhm.
Then it can make you super attractive because it's like, whoa, this guy has all these reasons not to be confident, and he's still stepping right up to me. Then that's very attractive.
Yeah, I think it really is true that like your disabilities are the being able to live with that really is kind of the gateway to your superpower. I mean, it's even in like the comic books and things, like the superheroes always have this big disability, and usually it's the reason that they're a superhero. But I think that's true. I see that like with my clients and students that really is like, cause I used to, I still do teach some disabled kids, and it's like when I see them, I'm like, I have a class of superheroes. These kids can do things the other kids can't do. Their potential is greater. And
Yeah.
and not everybody sees it that way, but that's the way it really is. And yeah. So it's pretty profound.
And the more they
Yeah.
learn to really believe and feel that in their bodies,
Mhm.
the more other people believe it too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's getting the guidance too, like being able to like for you or I to give people, maybe with disabilities the guidance to be able to the secrets, the things that you've discovered, through your
Yeah.
journey. Sharing those with people is so powerful, can really change everything for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point because, uh, when things started getting tough in middle school, I, actually I think it was right between 8th and ninth grade, I I think on my on the bus out of 8th grade, like, my last day in 8th grade, I was really frustrated, so I wrote some note. I was a big Trekkie nerd. I wasn't a
Mhm.
huge Trekkie nerd, but I always watched Star Trek with my parents and,
Mhm.
that kinda thing. I wish I could remember it more clearly, but I
Yeah.
wrote some note that was like it wasn't a suicide note, there was no intention
Mhm.
for it to be, like, that serious, but I wrote some note about how maybe something related with Star Trek and something like maybe I wasn't meant to be. When you see those words from a kid,
Uh, yeah.
that could be pretty serious, right? So that kind of finally, I think that did it fell out of my pocket on the bus, and somebody found it, and so then I got put in therapy, which was good because I needed it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And therapy did help me, make sure that I didn't do anything crazy or try anything crazy, that I didn't
Mhm.
go down even a darker hole.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of like actually changing my results, certainly with dating, but even with just people in general, um, it didn't really help there at all. It was all like, "Okay, well, you'll be fine," kinda thing. "Things will get better. Here's how you try to manage these relationships better," but it didn't really actually address, like, the stuff that I was doing that pulled that behavior out of people. And I know a
Mhm.
lot of people don't a lot of people wanna, you know, wanna look at the bullies, and the bullies are an issue, but I don't know, from my perspective, like, they have their own problems, and that does need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but what a lot of people miss is, like, what's creating that and why those patterns often keep happening to the same kids. Um, like, even if you deal with one bully, is that is that gonna keep happening? And usually the answer, or at least often the answer for me was yes, because
Yeah.
I'm being a certain way. I'm being so insecure and I'm like, making myself a target basically. And I have no boundaries. I also have no, like, again, like we talked earlier, masculine bonding connection
Mhm.
skills. So you know, it didn't really help there. And yeah, to be honest, like, I had a lot of good experiences in high school, but socially, like, it was awful. It was hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Um, I don't have to imagine. I had similar situations. Um, I know that just a parallel to what you're saying. It's remarkably similar. I myself had I haven't talked about this in a long time, but I really was crazy about Star Trek as a kid myself, and I would really focus on it. And I felt like, I don't know if this is what you were going through, but it sounded similar. I felt like I belong there, not here, right? That's my
Yeah, a
home,
little bit.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, my parents wouldn't let me stay up to watch it. I remember it was when it was on its original airing. I was like 2 years old, and I think it was on Sunday nights. And we were in upstate New York, where there was a lot of snow. We would get 18-foot drifts of snow. But I remember I would try and sneak downstairs and watch it, and then they would make me go back to bed. And I would try and peek around the corner of the stairs. And what I eventually did was I went out the front door in the snow in my pajamas when I was like 3 and walked around to the back of the house so I could look in the window and see it
Huh.
in the back window. So I would stand, and it was like, 5 degrees or whatever outside, and I'm standing in my pajamas out there watching Star Trek through the window, which I couldn't even hear very well. But and I remember I came back and they're like, "You're all wet, Well, how did you get wet from the snow?" But yeah, I really had this focus on Star Trek, and they did send me to therapy, I think, for walking outside at night and for the focus on Star Trek and not wanting to be here. But yeah, it's interesting, and I didn't see any real benefit from the traditional therapy other than me getting to talk to people. I guess just being able to get things off your chest is one
Yeah,
thing. There was that,
yeah,
but that was really about the only bit. I went later as an adult as well, and um, I saw the same thing. What I did eventually do is had some success in therapy by learning a lot myself, and then basically just using the therapist as a mirror, and I therapized myself. Like all the ideas and concepts
yep,
and tools came from
yep,
me, and the therapist was just a stand-in because I didn't have two bodies. Anyway, that's
yeah.
my experience with that. But it made me think of that it's similar situation. I had a learning disability.
Yeah, I think, therapy, it can become more valuable the more self-aware you are, and I feel
Hmm.
like, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm an expert on therapists. I haven't been to, like, all of the therapists,
Yeah.
but the feeling I get from the ones that I have been to, is that, therapists, and I think one of my coaches earlier on in my personal development journey said something like this, to me, that therapists can kind of be a mirror and ask a lot of questions and, gently guide you on things, whereas coaches, um, can can be a little more direct, right? We can
Hmm.
point things out more directly, and be like, either you might wanna do this, or sometimes some clients, and I myself have had many moments of this in my own personal development journey, where a coach had to tell me, "Dude, you gotta stop doing this if this is what you want. If
Yeah.
these are the results you want, you need to do this, and you need to show up and bring that masculine energy in too."
Yeah.
Which is another thing, because my dad couldn't really be there for me emotionally. I didn't really have a masculine figure in my life, and, that's one of the many gifts that great coaches have given me, is kind of being able to be that masculine energy in my life that I never had before.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. And it's yeah, you can't get that from a therapist. In fact, by law, they're not allowed to behave that way.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's not like the person is incapable. It's just not the role that they would fulfill. Yeah, yeah. My first real help
yeah,
was with an NLP therapist or an NLP coach. That was the first time I had success in you know changing things. Yeah. So for coaches,
yeah.
so let's touch on Fearless Man a little bit. So you were there for how many years?
It kind of, I I started out as a client with them in 2013.
Mm.
And then I started working for them, not as a coach originally, but doing social media and that kind of thing, in 2015. So,
Okay.
until they kind of sort of stopped operating at the end of 2022.
Yeah. Okay. So at least 7 years there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So how did that I'm interested in, so did you go to other dating coaches first and then find Fearless? And I'm interested in that part of your journey. Like how was the your journey through coaching and through Fearless, and how did that go?
Yeah, so, you know, kind of segueing from the therapy thing,
Mhm.
the thing I kept hearing, I'm sure it was more than this, but the thing that stuck that actually got through to me that
Mhm.
wasn't very helpful was, "Oh, it'll get better. It'll get better in high school. It'll get better
Mhm.
by the time you're a senior. It'll get better in college." It didn't get better. It got more painful.
Mhm.
I literally, and just to kind of paint a picture of how much of a nice guy I was, and just for anyone who hasn't heard this before, nice guy syndrome, when a lot of us men's coaches use it, we're
Mhm.
talking about codependence, basically, about being nice to a fault in terms of you're not actually being nice, you're giving to get. You're like
Mhm.
you're basically being a chameleon, and we a lot of times don't realize it because many times I remember times throughout high school where I was just like, I just need to be a little bit nicer, but
Mhm.
that wasn't like, looking back at it, I mean, did I care about people? Yes, I always cared about people. But down underneath that was this layer of, I how can I get what I want? Oh,
Mhm.
let me be nice to get what I want, which is kind of like being a used car salesman a little bit, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, let me be really nice. How do I need to be for you to like me?
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, and I had such bad nice guy syndrome that I literally, and it's funny because one of the models that works for me now, um, she was actually dating this guy in high school. And
Mhm.
I hadn't seen her for like 2 decades, I think, or close to that. And she came up and ended up being a model for Fearless one day.
Mhm.
There was this guy in high school, basically, that was a friend of a friend. He was a friend of my closest friend in high school, and I did not like him. I thought he was an asshole, but was so desperate to be liked that I literally bought him lunch to try to get him to like me. A guy,
Mhm.
because I was that desperate for this guy that I thought was an asshole, but I knew he was cool, so I wanted him to like me.
Ah. Yeah.
Um, and and, uh, and then, like, I took I took a I literally I helped out with the football team in high school because, I wanted to be a sports announcer, so I need to learn sports, not being able to play them. And I
Mhm.
literally, my junior prom, I am taking a sophomore football player guy because I think you had to have a date to go, technically. There was nothing sexual here, but, like, so I ended up just taking, and I guess that wasn't totally unheard of, pretty unheard of, but not completely unheard of, for friends to go together, and he was a sophomore, I was a junior, but again, he was cool, he was confident, he was very good with women, he was very well liked throughout the school, so I, like, literally took him to prom, and that's how I had no chance of getting a date. Senior prom, some friends
Hmm.
set me up. Yeah. Senior prom, some friends set me up with this girl. I paid for everything but the dress. And then as soon as we got to the prom, she basically disappeared on me. We danced a little. I need to give her some credit in case she hears this, but we
Yeah.
danced together a little bit, but I can't really blame her because she had nothing to connect to because I was so desperate, that it,
Mhm.
it ends up repelling women because it's like, he's not like, it just is. For anyone who doesn't understand this, when you're just kissing ass constantly and so desperate to be liked, it just makes you kind of be like, unless you already, for some other reason, really like the person, especially for women, it just makes you kind of be like, what the hell is going on here? I want to get away from this. Or at least I'm not, there's no spark of attraction, right? So just to paint you a picture, that's how bad high school was. College started out much the same way. Um, and I did find, I found old school pickup artist stuff. Yeah. So I found I found old school pickup artist stuff as a freshman. So that did kinda help me a little bit, here and there, I won't lie, like, it got me a little bit off, like, they used to say, "Are you the guy who holds up the walls of the bar?" Meaning you're always on the wall, right?
Uh,
And it got me kind of experimenting socially, like, learning one of the most valuable things it gave me actually was that realization that the teasing isn't, like, necessarily bullying, right? Teasing can be
mm,
actually is a very important part of flirting, right? You give each
mhm,
other shit, and that happens in healthy friendships too. You give each other shit, you call each other out, you create some humor, some fun chemistry, and that is where a lot of chemistry can spark. Um, so it taught me that, and then but I was still like, it was like, a lot of this stuff I couldn't pull off because I didn't have the underneath stuff handled, right? It was like Brian from Fearless, his former business partner, Robbie from Inner Confidence used to say, it's like putting whipped cream on shit. You're like trying to
mhm,
cover up the problem rather than actually deal with the problem. So like, back then they had the old routines of like, randomly tell girls about your stripper ex-girlfriend, right?
mhm,
Um, and I did have enough self-awareness back then that I was like, "There's no fucking way I'm pulling that off." Now now I could totally pull that off, but now I don't need to lie about stuff, you know? Um, so and like, even if I got a little attraction from a girl I was actually interested in, once we actually got a little deeper into the connection or certainly on a date, it would all go to shit because I ultimately didn't feel good enough for her. If I was attracted at
mhm,
all, I did not feel good enough for her. So, it helped me a little bit, but it was like it was manipulative and it wasn't really dealing with the actual wounds down deep. Um, and it was very heady too, which is not how women connect, right? It's like,
mhm,
let me attract her with my intellect or my witty mind, and the energy, the vibe, the connection, the emotions aren't there. Um,
mhm,
uh, and it was also just very uncomfortable too because I wasn't comfortable with, like, making shit up, with, like, lying to girls or, like, playing games, that kinda thing. I did find, eventually I found, the Art of Charm podcast, um, which
mhm,
was a big podcast back in the day. It's still around, actually. It's a little different now, less focused on dating now, but,
mhm,
um you know, and I was like, "Okay, these guys have more of a holistic, idea here." It goes a
mhm,
lot deeper, and it's a lot more genuine stuff they're talking about in terms of how to learn confidence and how to learn connecting with people and certainly with women. So I did a 7-day boot camp with them,
oh,
and I gotta say that I'll never forget one of my coaches who is actually now a close friend of mine, um, uh, he I told him at one break we had, I was like, "This stuff is more powerful than all the years of therapy I've ever had." Um, because it was
mhm,
just so much more like, again, they can bring that masculine energy, and also just, like, really be direct about, "Look, we gotta look at how we're being with people and, our mindset around things," and less like sometimes you're in a place where you can't answer the questions right, where you do need some actual teaching, like, "Here's how things work, and here's why things aren't working for you." Um, and, uh, I finally started having a dating life, like, actually feeling like that was more a part of my life than maybe settling for someone I wasn't interested in once every year and a half. Um but and it was like the way I like to put it is that, um, they gave me the good idea that my disability can be a gift. Um, and that was the first time I had been ready to, like, really accept that. Like, people in high school would always tell me, "Oh, you're so inspirational," and because of how bad of a place I was in, self-esteem wise, I actually took that as an insult. Not that they were
mhm,
trying to insult me. I knew they were trying to compliment me. But to me,
mhm,
I was like, "Oh, that means I'm a cute little inspirational disabled kid," you know?
Mhm.
Like not attractive, not confident, like not what I wanted to be, right? Um, and they gave me the idea that it could be a gift, and they helped guide me into some social situations in bars and out on the street, and like build up some of my self confidence. So I started to have a dating life, but it still felt like grasping at straws, and because when any tension was put on like those good beliefs, like when they weren't instantly validated, or if we're talking about dating, when a woman wasn't instantly destroying herself all over me, then those beliefs were pretty shaky because they were all up here and they hadn't really gone into my nervous system, into my body, into my bones. So, Art of Charm, life changing, life changing. I will say that it completely changed my life. But
Mhm.
there were levels that needed to go deeper, and that's where I eventually found Fearless.
Hmm. Okay. So it kind of Art of Charm was this first step that where you saw this is possible. All this whole world was opened up to you of possibility of being able to transform yourself.
Exactly, that's a great way
Uh,
of putting it.
yeah. And then stepping into Fearless, you were able to take that farther,
Yeah, yeah,
I presume.
yeah, they kind of they really helped me start to get those good beliefs from being in my head to
Mhm.
much more, and there's still a work in progress. I still have days where I'm insecure about it, like, I won't lie to you, but they helped
Mhm.
me get those good beliefs about my disability from something that's, like, nice idea to actually deeper into my bones, to actually believing in it. Um, so and then along with that, like, taking learning what it is to get out of your head. Like, what does that mean? Get out of your head. What? Like to actually learn to be more connected with my body and learn what it feels like for the first time in my life to have access to masculine energy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, embodiment is a big deal. It's kind
Yeah.
of That's everything. I look at it like there's kind of these five pillars or whatever: embodiment, presence, authenticity, vulnerability. There's another one. Anyway, they're all kind of different aspects of the same thing, but the embodiment is a big part of that. Um, and yeah, I learned a lot of that with Fearless myself. The embodiment stuff. Yeah, it's really being. I learned some of it. I first learned it in sex therapy. That was the first thing that really transformed me. I'd gone to regular therapists and then the sex therapist. That got to the core of the problem, of what was going on. And that helped me be in my body a bit. But Fearless really helped do that with, other people and to be able to approach other people and have conversations and be in my body. So, yeah, I can see.
Yeah, it's
And
really, it's a big core of like what I teach because like so much of the difference between a guy who can pull off walking up to a woman and being like, "God damn, you're sexy," or "God damn, you're beautiful," and a guy who walks up and is kind of like either like she's like, "Okay, thanks," or even like, "Creep," you know? Now every woman, every person is an individual, so we're not talking about a magic bullet that's gonna make you match with everyone because you're not supposed to be a match for everyone. But
yeah.
in terms of being your best, strongest, as I like to put it, self, um, you know, the difference in those things and the difference in so much of this work and so much of human connection is your energy and your vibe basically and where the words are coming from. Both in terms of like what you're feeling emotionally about the words and like where in your body they're coming from. So like
Hmm.
um you know are you are you apologetic? Are you like nervous? Are you feeling like you shouldn't be telling a girl she's beautiful or sexy right off the bat? Then that's going
Hmm.
to come off a certain way. There's a big difference between excuse me, I just had to come tell you you're really beautiful, you know. And maybe my delivery's not spot on there, but there's a big difference between that and like, "Hey, excuse me, like, I'm really nervous, but I just had to tell you, you are beautiful." You know, there's a big difference in
Mm,
energy there.
yeah.
Um, and what creates, because I lived my life, like, again, I was always well liked. Women always like to be friends with me, but just friends. So the friend zone was the story of my life, for way too long.
Yeah.
um, and I did get into some dark places in college. I never considered doing anything, but I mean, without personal development coaches, I don't know how bad it would have gotten because it was pretty
Yeah.
bad. Like I was like, I don't even know if this is gonna be my reality for the rest of my life. I don't know if it's really a reality I wanna continue living in.
Yeah.
Um, so, that's a big piece of it. Is like, are you owning it like I was kind of alluding to earlier, even with compliments. Are you owning it, and are you actually enjoying the girl and her eyes and, like, what you're attracted to? And, even feeling some turn on, and ideally feeling your cock as you talk, as you
Mhm.
say something that has some sexual or direct energy in it? Or are you so nervous or so shameful about sex that, like, or like, "I could get called a creep, you're not supposed to do
Mhm.
this," that you're all in your head and you're like, all shut off like, "You're really cute," that's not gonna have much of an
Yeah.
effect. So, um, it's like your beliefs about things and where in your body those words are coming from in the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at it like, is it's one is being honest and the other is being dishonest. It comes off weird because it's dishonest. It's you're not
Yeah.
being truthful. You're not connected to yourself. I find this to be I may go against popular opinion here, but I find this area of sexuality and dating and romantic relationships to be, I think because it's still taboo and so many people are still ashamed of it, and also because of the lack of initiation and because so many people don't understand it and don't know about it. Not only they don't understand about sex, they don't understand about how to meet people, they don't understand about how to have relationships, how to be successful in them. um so it's all one big blank spot really of just ignorance and fear. And so it's the perfect area to like start working on yourself, because just everything's easy to work on. And I think most people have this, most people. And especially here, I was going to say especially in the US, but not really. It's everywhere. It's the whole world. So, um, that disconnection in yourself, that's what's happening is if you're in your head, it just means you've disconnected yourself from your body and your own emotions. So you have emotions and body and head, and you're trying to do things with just your brain. And that's just not a way to function in any arena,
Yeah.
whether it's your work or doing homework or you're on vacation or you're looking at the Grand Canyon. You don't want to be that way,
Yeah. Yeah.
no matter what you're doing. But it really, the thing is like the perfect test is a romantic thing or a sexual thing. It will just, you'll know immediately, something's telling you this isn't working, whereas at your job and at the Grand Canyon, nobody notices, you can get away with it, but you're still just getting away with it,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
you're not really feeling fully being in the moment, that's what we mean when we're
Yeah.
talking about being in the moment, like, actually being viscerally there, not up here thinking half or even 30% somewhere else, but actually can you feel, like, a lot of times when I take guys out into the field in my in-person immersions, and a lot of nerves come up, even around just approaching people and doing general social exercises, like, a lot of nerves will come up. A lot of nerves used to come up for me. What there are different ways I have working on that stuff, but one of the things I'll have guys do is like, okay, let's just like look around here, um, and like, what can you feel the breeze on your skin? Can you feel, um, how your feet feel. Grounding is a big part of it too. Like grounding,
Mhm.
grounding. If you don't know, if you aren't familiar, um, it both helps you manage, anxiety for sure, and just difficult emotions in general. Um, but it's also where, the lower body tends to be where more of our masculinity comes from, especially the backs of the
Mhm.
legs, uh, is more of the masculine, so it gets you kind of into that masculine energy, and if you think about athletes, why how do athletes move? They tend to be lower in their bodies, so they're, have a low center of gravity and, have to be very connected to whatever playing surface they're playing on, right? And that's a big piece of it too, is actually being connected to the ground and feeling the environment around you. I'll also have them I'll ask them to do things like open their hearts a little bit, like literally drop your awareness. And if you're listening to this right now, can you even right now drop a little bit of your awareness into your heart or that area of your chest? If that's like, how can I feel my heart? That's an organ inside. Well, okay, can you just even touch your chest over your heart? That's an entry
Mhm.
point into feeling. And if you get still enough, I can even start to feel it a little bit as I talk. Um, it's helpful the more still you are. Like, can you feel your heartbeat and start to just feel more of that part of your body, and then look around you and like, what can you appreciate about the environment around you? To basically, it's kind of an embodied way of doing a reality check. Like, okay, I'm all worked up over approaching this girl or approaching this person or doing this kind of scary social exercise that's out of my comfort zone, or maybe I'm about to step into a situation where I need to have a difficult conversation with someone, or set a boundary, or get on stage, or go into a job interview even. Um,
Mhm.
okay, so I'm all worked up. Let me feel my grounding, feel the environment around me, the air on my skin, and take in like life around me. Can I appreciate that? To like make all this like heavy shit that we just made into this big heavy ball, right? And kind of give it a reality check, but in an embodied way, not thinking through it, but actually feeling through it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. I love that. Being, yeah, being in your body. That's what it's all about. I know. I remember when I had been grounding for a few years. Um, that was kind of the one thing I really learned to do early on. It was back in like 2006, and at one point, I used to do not great in job interviews. I would have to go through a lot of interviews before I got a job offer. And when I learned to ground, I started grounding right before and in the job interviews. And once I started doing that, I think I always got a job offer. I would turn them down. I got a job offer every time.
Yeah,
It
it's a
it
huge
was
difference. It's a
yeah.
huge difference, and that's so like going back to who Mike was after our charm versus like
Mhm.
going through Fearless,
Yeah.
again, I was starting to like have more of a dating life, which was a fantastic, but there was still like no sense of masculinity. Like I didn't even know what that was, or like
Mhm.
much less what that felt like, right? And I was all very upper energy, like, hey guys, like let's very, very friendly, um and somewhat feminine energy. And there's nothing wrong with femininity. An integrated man has access to both his femininity and his masculinity, but that masculinity is going to be important in terms of connections, especially if you're someone, some guys some clients, I do have to get them more into their feminine energy too, because that's more of the caretaking, empathetic, emotional connection energy. And that's very important too. But for a lot of guys like me, and it sounds like somewhat with you,
Mhm.
we have a lot of that empathy, a lot of that caring, a lot of that emotional connection access, whether we realize it or not, but we don't
Yep.
have that masculine. So it was all this like, hey guys, I'm a nice guy. What's up? All this like very high energy stuff. It's friendly, but again, the attractiveness, not the most powerful force, right? And
Yeah.
so, And it's also like hard to deal with tension when you're all in your upper body and you have no grounding. So learning to actually feel my feet on the ground, in my socks, in my shoes, how the floor, the ground underneath me feels, and then going through embodiment exercise where you learn to expand that feeling up the backs of your legs and throughout your legs and your lower body, and starting to just feel heavier almost in a good way, like a heavier, lower, more athletic, almost type
Mm-hmm.
energy, um, more connected to that. It just changes your vibe and your beingness a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's kind of the difference between like, "Hey, you're really cute," versus, "Hey, you're really cute," you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I could even have more turn on there. There's not a beautiful woman right in front of me, right? But
Yeah.
hopefully you can feel a big difference there between those 2 versions of Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely tell the difference. That's the end of part 1 of our interview with Mike Strong. Join us next time for part 2. James Ferrigno here, and it would be great if you guys could subscribe, like, follow whatever platform you're seeing this on, because that really helps me be able to continue the podcast. And so if you can do that, that would really help us out. Thanks a lot.